So we are going to start off from scratch. Like I did said, it's going to be a marathon. So that's why I said you guys should buckle up. And this will be a very good time for it to be interactive. And you need to concentrate. What I mean concentrate is you need to pay attention to what I'm doing and ask questions. So most times when you go back and watch the video and ask questions, you might not be able to follow. So when you join live like this, that's the best time for you to ask questions, because I will literally be going through every detail as much as I can. In fact, that 3 hours will not be enough, but let's see where it gets us. And I hope with this, I will be able to bootstrap the application to a point that you can then continue and continue the work on wherever I will stop. Okay, so let's take a crack at it. First of all, it's going to be a private repo as usual, but we can start with it being public and take it to private. I was hoping that you guys will work with me with this at the same time, but anywhere we stop, you guys can pick it up offline.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so we can do, we already have this project under asset gear. This is the asset gear we're working on, but this is for the desktop version. So we want to create a kind of mobile version thing. So I need to create that from scratch. Do we do .mobile? Okay, let me just do .mobile to be consistent. Okay. So you're going to give me your information so that we put it there. By so doing, you have access to it directly as well as I'm working on the project. So I need to add you guys as part of the team member. I think that's under this section here, if I'm not mistaken. That's under collaboration and team. This guy always have to ask me to do this every time. Okay, that's interesting. I could just use my finger. Okay, so I need your info, guys.
D Felix Ajibola.
Okay, that's D.
Yes. No, THE.
THE.
Ajibola. Ajibola.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
the okay. So what about you?
AZI.
Okay.
Go ahead. Lucky.
Oh, Lucky.
Yes.
I thought it's Loki. Asgard. Loki. Is it this one?
No.
Spell, please, so that we can be fast. AZI.
Okay. Yes.
Go ahead.
Lucky.
Spell.
That's LUCKY.
It's not coming up. It's not coming up. It's not coming up. It's not coming up. Please do that again.
All right. Let's go. AZI. AZI. TG. Let's try TG. That's 001.
Okay, so we're not having, this is not, this is delaying us. So we'll move on to the next thing. So that is not responding. You should have your ID at the back of your hands, and your ID should be something that is very easy to get by. This is my ID, for example. So maybe you want to do something about your ID. Your ID is too wonderful. So let's move on to the next thing, is trying to get access to the code and Bootstrap. Okay, so by now you should have this guy running. I wanted you to see how your Git stuff is, but we've not been able to come to that session for you. So before I set up anything, I just want to pull up Vite and start, doing stuff. My directory, all my application is sitting under apps folder here. I know my screen is a little bit small, but nothing important to stare at the moment. Okay, so I will just go and add the project. The project will just be sitting here. I know I'm supposed to, okay, which one is even the better way to do it? Okay, so let me just pull up. Okay. So let's pull up our terminal so that we can run the command line to set up our Vite. So we go to npm create Vite. So we can call it asset gear -mobile. Okay, so we are doing, well, they've added quite a lot of things here, but React is what we are doing, and we are doing it with TypeScript. Yep. That was fast. Okay, so let's go into our, let me just copy this guy. So you might not have to do this. We can just do it inside the application, but let's do it inside here. So we do run dev and then we have our Vite installed, but you know that we need to connect it to our Git. So while this one is going, let's go ahead and prepare our Git folder. Now there's a way I normally do it, even though there should be other, better way to do that. I just go to, where is it? Okay, I copy it from here. But when you do something like this here, you need to first create a file, just a sample file, so that it will have a head. Long story. So it will have a head. So we have that as our first commit, and we can copy the file, or rather can clone it using SSH. Go to our tool here and we'll clone from the copy we have, and it's sitting right here, but it's going to conflict with what we just created. It's going to have a conflict with it, so it's not going to allow us to create it. So I'm just going to put 1 in the front and go ahead and clone it. Now, by the way, what we are doing with our terminal is that it's writing, it has done all these things, all these wonderful things inside it. So I'm just going to leave this one like this. I'm not going to run it. So we have it inside mobile. Obviously, because of what we've done here, this is the one we've done. There are some hidden files that, this is the major thing. The Git, this is what keeps tracks of what's going on. So that's a hidden file, but our Vite has created another folder. So we don't need what the Vite has created for us. You can put the details of one inside the other one. So this is the important thing that we need, right? I can move this guy and put it inside the other folder that it must have created. Now I can't find that one. Where is that? That's interesting. Where did they put it? It's supposed to be available here. So we're in a hunt for our file. Okay, so I'm looking for this file now and I can't find it. Okay. You're not go shame me. Okay, so we'll go from here. Since that file looks as if it's hidden, so I renamed this back to mobile so that I can come and edit this one. What I can just do is just open and bring the mobile inside here. So what I need to do is I need to look for that file. So, okay, I think I know where it is. So it's inside my computer, obviously. So it's here, not this one. Okay. So let me find a way to route that directory. Okay, library users. So this is where it should be actually here. This is what we're looking for. So all my application, I prefer to put them inside here like this, instead of having them to be inside this method. That's personally for me. So that way I can easily get access to these files. I hope it has finished copying them before I trashed it. Wow. That copy didn't happen. We have a very big file going on here. Okay. So I'm not liking what I'm seeing. This is not what I expect. So let's do that again. Okay, so that looks clean now. Let's go to our code environment and move our file in there, or our folder in there. Okay. So open a folder, and that will be straight to our mobile app. So I think we'll also be able to set up Golang on this session as well. I think what we wanted to do was npm run dev, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last thing that remained for us to do. And then we have our app running at this endpoint. So I need to put this one live somewhere so that we can have a preview of what's going on. I think I should have a live server somewhere. Let me see if I have something like, okay, I have a preview. So this will always run preview like so. Okay. Now, this is pretty simple and basic. So we should be all good and going from here. The next thing I want us to work on is the configuration. And the reason why the configuration is important is that it sets kind of a standard as to what is obtainable. When I make configuration, all this Vite stuff here, right? These settings, those things are important. And I don't want things that will delay us in the development of this project. So those might not come immediately now. Those might come later. Okay, so let me look at the site you sent to me for the template, and let's start scripting and start. Remember, what I want to do is majorly to set the fundamentals. It's not necessarily doing the actual work, because that's left for you to actually work on. What I want to do is to set the basis for the foundation of what you need to work on. Okay, this is the template that was set, which looks great, right? Nothing too out of the ordinary. Let me see if it's responding. Nothing too shabby. It's cool. Okay, even though this one is
So you can change the view at the top there.
here.
Desktop.
No, don't worry. I'm not bothered about the desktop. Our focus is mobile. Remember, I did mention that our focus is mobile. So your focus is mobile, not the desktop version. That's where our focus is. Okay, so work description, client name, submit. Okay. And the idea of this is just to guide. It's just to guide. So whatever you are doing, your attention should be focused on having the mobile view. Okay, now that we have that part going, the next thing I want to talk to is, how does Golang fit into the whole scenario? How do we put Golang inside this whole thing? Now, the last time, where did we stop in Golang? When we were stopping, I think we did mention doing API. Did we do REST API in Golang? Do you remember where we stopped? You guys have forgotten. Okay, so let's continue. Like I said, what I'm doing is Bootstrap, and then we'll then focus on doing the actual coding. I'm gonna merge the whole project into one. Merge in the sense that I don't want to maintain a different folder for the API, or should I separate it? Okay, I think we need to separate it at some point. So we need to create a Golang folder. So how do we start a Golang project, it has its own, procedure as well. Okay, so we go to, I think we need to open a new directory, even though it's gonna be in this same format. Let me change it to this section. Where's that icon stuff? Yeah, icon. Okay, so this asset gear mobile. So what we can put here is asset gear API, right? That's what I can just call it. We can look at renaming it. Before we finish, we'll even rename everything later to give it a better nomenclature. We'll reconcile all this later, but I just want to start creating the file and everything. We'll rename all this documentation or the document later. So we then need to drop this one into, okay, so let me even start by renaming it now, because I've seen some things that I will need to change. Right now, I've started seeing some stuff I need to change. So this is the mobile. The mobile will allow us to, we'll need to have like the front end, and then we can now have the back end. So everything here is literally the front end. These are individual projects, so you can name them anything. This one then becomes the back end. Okay, I think they will just be one project, just for easy manage, because this project is supposed to be a very small project, just in and out, and then we are good to go. So we have the structure obviously has changed here. Now for the backend, we need to be able to create the process. We need to be able to write the code for, setting it up. The last time I did mention that this guy has restarted. So you can span on, you can delete this one or create new terminal as need be. So we need to be in backend. Then we can do go mode, that's the module initialize. This is to create a namespace. I like putting the namespace in full. github.com/ I think it's Office Lime. Let me be sure. Is it Office Lime? / asset gear API. So just to be sure, let me look at what I did with my previous project and see how the naming went. So I have this Office Lime API we did. I can just go straight to one of the packages and see how I named it. So you can see the naming convention, the GitHub thing. Oh, I still keep saying GitLab. So the GitHub thing stays. The brand stays there. Then the folder name or the project name. These other things are sub packages and what have you. So we can maintain the same thing. GitHub, Office Lime X is the company, and asset gear. Okay, can sit there. So this can be asset gear. Okay. So what it does is just simply creating a file. So you could literally just create this file yourself, but that's the routine of how you create your mode and the rest. So you start by creating our first file, which is your main, and every other thing continues from there. I think we imported some things the other time. We imported, or rather we did some work where we used air, right? I think I remember that part. We used air to Bootstrap to show you how you can run dynamic stuff?
Yes, we did.
So let's see how that works. If I say air, yeah, you can see that we have air globally runs, working. So you have your air working. If you make changes to this now and say ... you have your code will rebuild automatically and give you that access. Remember that this guy is compiled, right? Doesn't work on, it's not runtime, so it's compiled. Okay, that is said. The next thing we need to worry about is this guy is working. Did we work on calling endpoints in the last Golang class?
No, sir.
Okay, we didn't do endpoint. Okay, so this would be like an extension of the previous class that we had. So what we want to do is I will just set up some few endpoints, how to access endpoints, right? And then we can bring it up from there, or we can be building up the whole thing from that angle. Okay, so there are various tools we can use to do our endpoint thing, right? There are various tools out there, a lot of them, but we use what's the name of this guy again? It's this guy we use. I'm trying to remember the name. Okay, let me just look it up. Yeah, Gene. Yes, we use Gene. There's quite a lot of them. So we say Golang REST framework. So there's quite a lot of them. So there's Go in Gene. Consider as the first thing we have. There's, like I said, quite a lot of them. So you have to just pick the one that works for you. But we're using Gene. So what that means is that you have to install Gene itself into your package or into your whole system. So how do you go ahead to do that installation? We go with, okay, we also did Swagger. Yeah, very important. We did Swagger. In fact, what I will do is I will now bring up the Swagger stuff, all the whole code. I think I explained Swagger a lot in the last video. We'll go ahead, and because this is a whole full API setup thing that went on. So let's go ahead, before we start pulling up Swagger stuff, let's bring in Gene and see how it works. So let me go to the documentation to help with the explanation. So let's go and read the docs about Gene. Okay, let's get straight to the example. Hope you guys are not going to be sending me back and forth, because I just got here and then I'm expecting to just see example. Yes, this is it. Very simple. So this is net.http. This is what allows you to go back and forth. So to use Gene is just to say this. You have to do default. Default is to set up the structure that you have, and then you get ping, meaning you can put an endpoint and ping, and this will happen. It's as straightforward as that. So you're gonna be seeing something similar to this guy. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can set that up. So we're told to do some default guy. So I create a route like this, and because did I install Gene at some point? No, I've not installed Gene. So for you to get Gene in place, you have to go get this guy. There's a way you get components, just like in Python and every other thing that has to do with packages. You have to get them first. Same thing like Node.js as well. When you're trying to use tools, you have to get them before they are available. So let's stop the compiler from using air. I need to, so that it doesn't go and start fetching that every now and then. So let's go and get the Gene guy. Okay, let's see. So we need to install it by saying go get. So you come here and say go get this guy. Of course, you don't need to cram this. You know what you want to use, so you need to get the endpoint or the directory so that you can install it. Now our gene is in place. The next thing for us to do is to do this default thing. Default allows you to pass some configuration. The configuration are kind of options that you want to set for your server. We're not going to be doing any of those configuration yet for now, right? I'm going to be adding some sophistication to it as time goes on. But for now, let's just maintain default and let's just call a very simple stuff. So this is us running, doing a get. If anybody comes to the server, like so, it should say hello, you know, blah, 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 blah. That's what it will say. Of course, using port 8080. So let's hit run by just saying A. So when you hit A, it goes and set up your server. Now this is, you know, stories talking about that the guy is running. Let's take a crack at it and see what's happening. Remember, you have to be on 8080. So once you do that, you have your message here and you can see what is going on here. It's telling you that you executed the endpoint, or you hit, you know, the endpoint for that / and then you got out this page. Now I think something interesting happened. It's trying to call something else. It's trying to call this guy. What's going on? I think the reason is because there's also another server running somewhere. So another server is calling this on this 8080. But let me just make some modification. Let's say 80. I used to do 1990 as well. So you can see the good thing about the code I just changed now is that, you know, as I just changed it, you can see that Go is doing its thing, or rather A is doing its thing by rerunning or recompiling the entire code for me, and I can go ahead and test. Okay, so I'm not going to worry myself about what is going on here. This guy is calling some things that is best known to it. Now, what this means might be that this sandbox we are using for preview is doing its own thing by executing all these things. So what I want to do is that, even though this is not necessary, I just want to do a quick test of something. So let me spin up another previewer. I have another preview somewhere. Let me see this preview. Okay, yeah, I have another preview. This is another preview guy. So I'm gonna end this guy. And so this one, I want to refresh it to some point so that it's kind of clean, and call it again. This guy is not allowing external endpoint to call, but that's fine. We can call our external endpoint through other means. Now, do you see the difference? Using a normal browser to call our endpoint is running properly. It's calling the proper endpoint and it's calling favicon. Yeah, browser sometimes want to pull favicon from where they are coming from, obviously because it wants to put the favicon on the top of the browser. So this is I2know. The browser is doing I2know. Okay, let's see. This guy is supposed to even be allowing 1990 now. It's still, so there's it's still not allowing me to be able to pull that off by myself. It's not allowing me. I will think I would then rely on the preview. So let's rely on the preview guy. Let's see if we can split the screen to give us that preview effect. Okay, so we're gonna rely on our preview here. 1990, even though it's doing these two things I don't like, but that's just it. That's a trade-off to give us what we need to see. Okay, our preview is working like that. The next thing we want to do is this is part of the education. As you do stuffs in your program, as you install packages, what do you see then happen is that you have your Go mod or module being, ingested or injected with what's it called, packages that the Go program uses to do some stuffs inside and out. And you've seen a new one called GoSum. GoSum is doing its own magic. Don't worry, no time to explain. The same thing is something like the package you have here, package.json. So package.json is like Go mode, while package lock.json is like GoSum. Okay, so I'm sure we don't normally touch these guys, but the good thing about this one is that you can click here for upgrade. I think it's woven directly into Go mode. Of course, I know that package.json too, you can find a module, or rather an extension that you can quickly, take your mouse over it and you say install, upgrade, and things like that. If you know me so well, I'm an advocate for Golang. So I can just click update and then to try to do this thing on the bottom and try to upgrade any component that needs upgrade. Moving on to the next thing is for us to be able to, we've seen how to call an endpoint. It's as simple as this. So if you want to do another endpoint, you want to register. Of course, this is a bloated way of doing it. I'm going to make it easier as time goes on. So if you want to do another guy, you will just say hi, and then some say I'm here. Of course, we're going to expand this so you can see, very simple, I'm here, and then you have your endpoint called like that. So moving on to the next thing that we need to focus on is, let me check. So let's start providing like some fundamentals or some settings into the system that we'll really need, because there's quite a lot of things that we'll be needing as a framework like this or as a backend API system like this. We've talked about what was it called, Swagger before. Let's go back and add Swagger back into the system. Let's add Swagger back into the system. I hope it just works without giving us too many problems. Let's see how it goes. Now, the first thing I want to do is to bring all the imports that I need for Swagger to work. One of the things we'll be working to is the Swagger files. And if you try to bring it in, it will just go away. So there are some few setup that we need to do for that Swagger to fall in line, because it's one of those things that it's required. You have to make sure that your Swagger is in place for better documentation and for other people to be able to use your API. Even though it's a very small project, I recommend that you have your Swagger installed. Okay, let's see how we go with this. First, obviously, we'll be needing our terminal. Let me create a new terminal to be able to run more command. So we'll go cd into our backend, and the next thing we need to do is we already have Swagger installed to some point. We need to do we already have, but let me get them again. We need to get this guy. We already have Gene already. We already have, let me install this, go get github.com Swagger files. This is what will generate the static folders that we will need, or files you will need. Then we'll have the Swagger thing also, because we can install Swagger specific for Gene, right? Then we have the swag command itself, which we've installed before, by the way, but I just want to make sure we've installed it already before. So you can see that I didn't even do anything, because like I said, we have it before. Now the next thing is for us to execute swag by just saying, of course we don't have all the files there, but I just want to show you the command line. You have to do swag initialize, just the way we did A. So you have to run swag initialize. So once you do this, it will create a folder on the left hand side for us, which is here. So if you remember, there's no folder called doc. So this folder just got created because we did swag initialize and it did all these stuff for us. So let's go back and then start putting actual code here that will connect with the doc that you have there. Now, one of the code that we need to put is that you remember that our swag is also running a server on its own. It's supposed to be accessible through the URL for people to see what is going on. So what that means is that you need to be hosting swag on that same server, swagger on that same server. That's what this one does. So you say anytime you go to swagger.anything, you should render or handle the swagger files and the rest. Okay, so that's what we've done here. These are all the files. Let me see if I'm missing anything. Now we need to be able to import these docs that we have here. Now that docs is available under, you have to import it manually like so. Now you have to be able to pull the location. So the location is available through my own name. I'm gonna use GitHub as in package folder itself. Office Lime X, asset gear, not mobile, just asset gear, then docs. That's how we get to this place so that the docs can be pushed. So if we try to do swag initialize again, everything should be set. Let's try and access Swagger now. To access it, you do Swagger and let me see. Yep. We then do index.html. So we're almost there. This is the Swagger documentation. It's not yet giving us exactly what we want. So the next thing I need to do is to debug and see where issues are coming from. Let me check this one. Okay, let me make sure that I'm importing everything. Okay, what's this one saying? Oh, I'm having an error here. Even though I'm not supposed to touch this file because these files are generated automatically. So you need to let Swagger, do its thing and get those files fixed for you. There are requirements in making sure that the system meets, Swagger requirements and what have you. So these are the 3 requirements. You reference to this folder, which is the docs, right? And then am I sure that it's getting, okay, there's no backend though. Back end. Okay, could this be the issue? So this it's not working, it's giving us error. But let me try if generating this at this, Swagger that. I remember that time as well, it gave us a little bit of tough time too like this before we could get it figured out. So this is not giving any issue again. This code here, we can't touch this code. So it's supposed to resolve by itself. But if it's not resolving, we'll move on and continue with where we are. Let me see what's happening here. So this is swagger.any, doing 3 handles. Okay, maybe because we've not defined anything, let me assume. So let me define some things on the, I doubt that's it, but let's start defining something. So first of all, the AI has helped us to do some stuffs by putting some documentation, and you can specify base API, base path. Okay, just put base path as this. So let me see if something will work now. Index.html. Okay. So let me see what's happening at the backend or the JavaScript. Sometimes you might want to use the error you are getting to see if you can fix the interface that you're having.
I think the index.html is inside frontend.
That's what I'm trying to, yeah, I'm trying to check what's going on. There's no, it's not generating index.html is automatically generated on the fly. So yeah, it's supposed to go and, oh, okay, I think I know what's going on, because it's supposed to pick swagger.json, rather, if I'm correct, swagger.json. So docs.json. So let me see what, because that's what this guy is supposed to do. This explore is supposed to explore that bit. So if I check through the code, you will notice that if I refresh the entire thing now, you will notice what it's trying to call. It's trying to call the endpoint that does not exist, or the file that does not exist. It's calling swagger/doc.json. I think I remember that we did some manipulation the other time, which we might end up doing again. What I want to do is I want to check one of the one that I have working to see what I did. So this is a project. It has a doc. Okay, still carrying the main thing here. So let me see what then happened here. Okay, this you can see that the swagger.json is doing what we are supposed to see. That's what happened. These are generated automatically. These are generated automatically from what you loaded inside here. That's the idea. I mean, anytime you run your swag initialization, it does this thing and do the needful. So you're supposed to generate, and that's why this code is saying generate something here. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, let me try one more time. If it's not going, we'll move on. It's something that we can easily fix later on. But I'm having a feeling that because of this, it's not going, because that's why we are seeing an error somewhere here. Left delimiter instruct. Let me see if I have that same thing. Oh, okay. I think I'm seeing some funny business going on here. So let's do a little bit of stuff. Let me delete this and regenerate it and see what happens. Okay, it still gives the same thing. Even though it regenerated, it still gave the same error. Let me check what I have here. So these two things, maybe we don't have a proper definition of our Swagger installation. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have what I have here to see if that will fix it. Okay, let's move on. That didn't fix our Swagger API documentation, but once the fix comes, you should get it as an update and you'll be able to go with it. Let's see if ChatGPT can help us to solve the issue. Did I remove that already? Okay. Service not available. I don't know what we were doing just now. So I think we might be having issue with, we're having issue with this part here. We were having issue with that part. Let's try doing something like this and see. Because I like the whole thing being full, even though it's with that it's not working. With that it's not working. So asset gear. It's gonna break our app, but let me try something. Let me call it asset gear like this and see what happens. I thought as much. It's still the same thing. So the solution will come when I'm sleeping. Back end. Okay, that back end is not needed actually. So let's move on to the next thing. Now the next thing is setting up our structure in such a way that it will be easy for us to develop. And what does that mean by saying easy for us to develop? In terms of when we want to start adding things, there is the normal crude, delete, add, and what have you. How do we want to start cascading? How do we want to start separating what needs to be visible to general public and or a secure? How do we create authentication, for example? So that's what we want to start looking at now. Okay, apart from authentication, there are other things as well we need to focus on. So let's start with this default. What goes next after the default? We need to create some middlewares. Middleware are stuff that needs to run underground, right? I don't know if we need to do that now, but let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, I talk about the middleware. What middleware does is allow you to do some stuffs while you make your request. Immediately anybody hits that endpoint, it does some stuff first before allowing you to do other things, or it's a kind of a security architecture that goes in place. So I'm just going to copy a bunch of stuffs that I have here and then try as much as possible to explain. So what's happened here is CORS. I'm sure you know what this CORS means. Is a security measure to allow that to note or to make sure that the person that is requesting it is actually the true person that needs it. This is also to provide all the methods that can be allowed on the server and what have you. So this is like a security standard stuff. So these are the things you want to accept from the client. I don't think we'll be doing client ID for now. So you can add as many things as you want that matters, but this is like the standard that we're using. So we can also create a kind of group, which from the top of my head, I'm going to create some group right now. So we can have a section for, I'm putting everything here for easy access. Authentication for token, we're going to be using token base, meaning that you request for token and that token is what you're going to be using to log in. We'll go into details on how that is going to be in the future. So the idea is that you're supposed to make a post to get a token, right? Because you are going to post your information, maybe your username and password or something like that to get a token, right? So that can be done by using this endpoint. So whenever you call this endpoint, you are trying to get a token. So anything you try to do or interact with the system, you are feeding the token back to the system. What that means is that any other endpoints that you call, you need to be pushing a token with it. So this one is freely available to everybody in the world. They can access this. So we're about to create a secure, more secure endpoint for people to handle. So if you don't have a token, you cannot get into that. So I'm going to create a kind of controller. I don't want to create something like this whereby you saw the way I just did something like this, function, and I do context. Just ignore all these things, Sha. Don't worry about all these things. I know you are new to Golang. Ignore all these things for now. But what it's trying to say is that it's just creating a function, bunch of functions. So look at this as one single thing. This is one single thing, which is a function.
Yeah.
So what it's trying to do is that you are saying that whenever I call this endpoint, go and call this function. So that's what I'm about to do here as well. Instead of me writing, like for example, the code has generated something for me and say, hey, this is your token. I need to go and write the function somewhere because the code cannot literally fit into this place. Okay, so what I can do now is that I will now start structuring my application to now have structure, kind of. So I'm going to create a folder called controllers. So, and inside it, I can then create my maybe user or anything you want to call it. You can call it auth or something, but let's just say user to be consistent. Then that's user.go, and automatically it's supposed to be your controller kind of a thing. In that user.go, that's where I'm gonna get my function for get token. Then everything I'm supposed to have done here, in fact, let me just copy it and paste. So if I copy and paste, we now have our thing going on there. Okay. This guy is supposed to help me import all the needful. So he's still trying to find all the things that he needs to import.
I can't hear you again, sir.
Okay, so it's just I wanted to import all the things I need. So what I just did here is just to replicate what is here inside the controller users here, so that I can do away with this and do control get token. So again, you're not going to be passing function. It's just going to be like this, plain like this. Okay, so you need to also provide the right path to that section. So this one is going to be like so. This one is not, yeah, I think I made a mistake there. Okay, so what we've just done is to isolate or to put the code separately. Nothing groundbreaking yet. Now, what I want to implement now, what I want to show now is how to create a kind of group in such a way that anything that you put in that code or you put in that block requires some certain, access. So how do I create something like that? I can create a variable and call it, let me just say G for lack of a better word, and say my R stands for this guy right here. This is where our R has been coming from. right? And then I want it to have a group, kind of I want to group them in such a way that anytime I do version 1, anything that follows inside that group should be what should have version 1. That's not just the only benefit of it, but let me go ahead and continue what I mean, so it gives you an idea of what's going on. So inside this now, I can do, for example, I can do, let's say, yeah, I can do something like this. I can say g.getToken. Now what this means is that, let me not do get token because we've already gotten token here. Let me clear all these guys away. Now, instead of me every time saying version 1, version 1, version 1, version 1, I can just say work order, right? And I can do this one. I can say work order ID. I can do something like this. I can go ahead and say this one, I can say is patch. I can say is patch. And I think you should get the gist of what this is trying to do. What are you trying to fix?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what this group is majorly for. Allows you to create a path. Does not delay user. Allow you to create a path, and then everything will fall inside this. Or you can do something like, say, maintenance. Let me put v1/maintenance. That way, your full endpoint now becomes v1 maintenance/work order. Instead of repeating maintenance here. That's one of the major benefits of doing something like this. But I'm gonna just put v1 like so and continue with what I want to achieve. Now the next thing you want to do is that you want to also say that this group, even though we group it, I want them to go through a specific function. You can also pass what I call a middleware. Middleware is something that you want to actually handle before it processes anything inside here. And that middleware can also be addressed to access to everything, right? Not just this one. You can create more groups if you want to. So I can call that middleware token authentication middleware. And the idea is that to authenticate my token. So it has automatically created something for me. Is it listening to me or something? Authentication middleware, that's that. Notice that this is a function while this is not a function. Long story. This one receives a function. This one does not receive a function. We now need to go and write our authentication token stuff to do. That's a long story, but we'll get there. Let's go ahead and write something on that. I'm going to copy something simple and just do copy and paste, right? And I'm going to, of course, I'm not implementing it. This is just a way it works. So I'm not going to implement this, but this is just to check the token and what have you. Like I said, I'm not implementing this one. I'm just going to stop right here. Now, if you notice what's happening, when I'm doing this is where I'm checking what is being supplied in the context. So context is a way for you to know what that is being sent to you from the browser. When we hit the browser like this and you make a request, there's this context. The context is everything that is like apart from payload, because payload is just one part. There is a lot that gets sent to the server. So that's a lot is inside context. So you can see that you have quite a lot of things inside, not just the method. There's quite a lot of things, the parameter, the handle, the index, everything, the engine. You can think about it is all here that the browser is sending to the backend, and you can play with it and check some stuffs and use that to react to whatever you want to react with. Now notice that even while I was checking the context, if I detect some things, I can set some variable and make it available globally. We'll be talking later, to these ones later on. And at the end, this thing allow you to go to the next person or the next step, allow you to go to the next thing. If you do not do this next, I think it will stall here. So when you are creating a middleware, the implementation of that next allow you to go to, oh, okay, next thing to do. And by the way, you can have more than one middleware. So I created one middleware and it's called delay in one of my projects. So delay is for me to like maybe delay for like 20-30 seconds. I wanted to test the system to see how long it would take for it to do something. I want to check the loading effect. I want to physical because it was too fast, so I need to delay it. So most of my endpoints, I now added this to it so that I want to have a physical sense as at how the thing is moving. I wanted to see the loading button works. So I had to write a middleware for actually to delay my code. So that's by the way. Okay, that said, we have those things in order. Now, notice that nothing has been written in this code. These are just placeholders. Nothing so special has been written in them. I'm going to do the same to these ones. And by the way, I think they can even be blank and you won't have, nobody's going to penalize you. It's being blank like this. So let me see, is the server running? Okay, let's try and run the server. Because this guy 127.0.0.1 seems not to wants to respond to us, so it's kind of going. Most of it's a good practice to use version labeling in your endpoints like this, so that if you want new version to come up, you can easily implement version 2 and what have you. And you can do something like implement that in your base code here so that it's also available in your base code. That's base part rather. So you can have this version 1 thing going up for it in this part. So let's test and see what is happening. So if you do token like so, nothing special, we get our token is not coming up. Oh, okay, so I'm sure because of this v1 and this v1 they've clashed, but let me just check that that's the case. No, that's not the case. And you can always see your requests here, what you are doing. I don't trust this this guy. Let's go to this one here, even though it's kind of giving us the same thing. Okay, this is a post, no wonder. Let's go to the next one. This was a post that is requesting for, but while you're running a get, that's why we're not getting a result. So let's move on to the one that is get, that we can see something for. Let's check the work order. Oh, let me turn this one to get, just to make sure that we are not stuck and that our code is actually responding. Where's that guy? Okay, our code is actually not responding. Okay, so let me explain what just happened. Whenever you get into this mess of your code just simply hangs and not working. There are reasons to that. Number one, look at your browser, or rather look at your editor. You will notice red everywhere. If you have red here, nothing's gonna happen. You might run your code forever. It's not just budging. So we need to make sure that you satisfy what this guy is telling you. Now we need to install this one. This is not part of Gene. This is a contributors. These are people that contribute to Gene. I don't know why this code didn't make its way into Gene official stuff. You can see that this is Gene official repo. It's called Gene Gonic. While this one are people that try to contribute to Gene but couldn't find its way into Gene. I don't know why. So we need to also install this guy. Right? It's not installed. So we go to cd backend, go get. Okay, while that one is working, okay, so we can see that the error has gone away. So fingers crossed, and let's see if this guy will work. $19.19. The guy is not responding to me at all. So what I want to do is I want to get this guy's back. Let's call our get token here. Okay, so I want to see why our controller is not responding. So if you go to your controller here, we are doing the same thing, right? But it's not responding. So let's fix that. Let me try and call it again. Oh, let me see what's going on here. Where is it calling? Okay, there's some spooky thing going on here. There's nothing like hello go plus Jane in my code, but here in the output it's giving me something that I don't have. You said?
I said okay, and it's even a JSON file.
No, it doesn't matter. That's fine. It's supposed to be a JSON because that's what it returns. When you are inside here, that's what it's doing here. It's returning a JSON, so that's fine. My point is that it's returning.
Yeah.
It's returning something that does not exist. So when something like this happens, it means your compile has been broken somewhere. What you're having issue with the compiler. You see that the code is not being compiled, or something funny is happening. So what I want to do is I want to check this guy to see what this guy is saying. Then if it doesn't work, then I'm going to do something else. So let me tell you what's happening. Now your code is being run inside here. This is a temp folder here. Your temp folder is created by, what's the guy's name? A is the one that generated this temp. So all the code that is being executed is from this main. I think that's the last known one that worked, and that's why it's giving us old code. So what I want to do is I want to shut it down. So I just shut that down and respan it up and see what happens from there. Okay, new terminal. cd backend everything looks good. Let's refresh this page. It's still giving us something else. So what I would do, I will not use air this time around. I'm going to delete this one. And I will call the code directly, like executes the application directly without using the code. And then see what happens. Okay, so now we are seeing the true color of what is happening. So the fact that this one is giving us this red, obviously something that the compiler couldn't avoid or couldn't leave alone. We've already seen this error a long time ago, but it's not going anywhere and it's not allowing us to do anything. So we need to resolve it. And this was generated automatically. We're not supposed to edit it, right? So that means we're having a problem from the implementation of Swagger. That's where our problem is coming from. And we need to fix that problem ASAP, or we remove Swagger and continue with the code. So what I'll opt for is for us to just temporarily remove Swagger so that we can continue with what we're doing. So if you delete this, it will solve the problem temporarily, and you might need to remove this guy. I can just comment it. One of the things I'm trying to think it's causing it is because maybe we have subfolder shouldn't affect it. Always being inside subfolder shouldn't have an effect, but we check and look at why that is giving us an issue. So if we should go back and do our go run, the code should work properly, and if we refresh this, it should give us normal. So this has been messing with our head all along. Now let's go back to our air. So air was just running the the most active, or the most, what will I call it now, the last known correct code. And that's one other thing you will notice whenever you have an error in your compile, you see that red stuff coming up. I was ignoring it since it was still running. So let's go ahead and continue what we were doing. So let's go back to trying to make sure that the code works the way it should be. Now let's run version 1/token. Yep, it's working like expected. This is what I was expecting to see. Let's get this back to posts, meaning you need to make a post to get a token, and this token will be that you want to submit username. We'll get into that authentication later. So let's see if all these ones will also follow the rule and also work order / let's say 1. Of course, it's not going to give us anything because we didn't tell it what to do. So I can just copy this guy. It will still repeat the same token thing. So yeah, that's it. It's working and is following the command. Of course, if there was an issue here in trying to authenticate the person, it's going to stop at this track. And that's why when you are inside here, you can call some other things like I'm gonna call that thing now. Instead of saying next, you can call error. Like, okay, let's even make use of the code that we got here now. So even though we know we did not provide any authorization, right? You can see that we're passing 401 to the user. That's the token. And then we are saying you should abort the connection. So if this token was valid, it will go to the next, meaning it will allow the next thing to work. So if we run this now, of course, we know that this is going to abort because there's no header token inside. We didn't provide anything. So if I run this, you can see that it's giving us the message unauthorized, and then we are 404. which is, or rather 4.1, which is what we specify in the code. Now, this is an opportunity for me to showcase one of the package I wrote to help with having a standard formatting in what you are returning. This is the backend, and what backend does is that you send data to the front end. So this can become tasking over a long time, whereby you have to format and align, oh, what are the data that I need to send? How do I know if there's an error and what have you? So I have this tool that I create that we're going to go through quickly. We're going to import and use it quickly. So that's a personal, it's a public project as well. You guys can go and start it as well. And I can check my repo. We're going to be using this one too later, but it's go response or something.
Okay, go rest.
Yeah, go resp, yeah. So if I come to, so let's install it by doing this guy, go get this guy. Then we'll see how we can use it. Okay. So we are not inside Go. That's the disadvantage of having structured folder like this, where you have the folder handles two projects at the same time. It comes with disadvantage, but that's not really a biggie. Now the next thing is, how do we use it? Yeah, you can go and read all the documentation, but it's just a wrapper, quote unquote. Yeah, just kind of a wrapper. You are familiar with this already. This is how you do your gene default and how you run your ports, get all your handles. We are familiar with that. The one that is new is how to return data, right? Which is, you have to first make use of, I want to look at an example. I want to do something very simple. So this is the result that I want to be returning most times, as in this is standard. All response will follow the standard format that says the message, and it's short form for MSG, that says the data and shows either the error is true or false. I was thinking if I should turn this to okay instead of ER, then if it is okay, it is true. If it is false, it means it's an error. Long story short, let's see the implementation on how to use it. Now, to make use of it, you need to first create it first, like so. That is, you need to create it, and the C part is the context, so that needs to be created. But if you are not using this method, notice that you will not create it, you just use it from the context here. Okay, so you will not see the importance now is until you are now dealing with multiple response to do stuff, right? You will now see it as handy, but for now it looks somehow. Now if you want to now use it, you will now say you want to do the same thing like this, right? How do you do something as same as the above? Is by doing, so since we want to do something like unauthorized, you can do, so these are the functions that come with it. Actually, you can do access denied, right? And access denied allows you to also pass special messages, maybe if you want to say something more than what you've just said. So I'm going to cut this one, uncomment this one, and see how it handles it. Now with access denied, you don't need to say abort again. You don't need to write abort again. So that one line of code that we've introduced, we've been saved by that here again. So it's still 2 lines of code. 1 line of code, 1 line of code. The same way you have, this line of code and the other line of code that I removed. So it's still the same 2 lines of code. So if I refresh my page, I should have message, access denied, error, true. So remember, I kind of shared the standard to you. You have message, you have access denied, then you have error, you have true. It's an error. So if it eventually was okay, let's go and check this guy. Let's now replace this one with data like this, the same format. Like I said, we have to create the guy first. You have to create it. That's the unfortunate part. Because then the next thing is you now need to say is okay. So we have okay. We also even have the JSON. If you want to still maintain the JSON format like this, if you want to pass the JSON format, but if everything is okay, you just say okay. And if you want to say something after you must have said okay, you can still say it. Example is that you want to pass the token. So you don't need to say message, this is that, you just pass in the token and say token goes in here. Then let me uncomment this so that you see before and after. So if I come here and do, is it / okay, token has to be there. Huh? Okay, I think we've changed it back to post. Yeah, let's turn it back to get so that we can see the result. It's still compiling. Yes, so we have it there. Now you have message is equals to success. Very important. Message is equals to success, while the data is what you want to send back to the client. And the error is false, meaning it's not true. Error is false. That's what is happening there. So at all points, you have, at all times rather, you have three data. You have the message, data, and error. So you can check any one and it will always give you, you can use that to make your logic and everything like that. And there are other ones as well, not just this one. So instead of using the C, JSON, blah, blah, you now specify. So you can see that this one comes with a lot of things you need to know. You need to worry about the code that you want to send. And then you now create your own JSON yourself. So this one just makes it simple to handle. So in your code now, this is what you should be looking at. You create it and then you can reuse it inside your code and other part of the system. Okay, what else do we need to deal with before?
I was going to ask.
Go ahead.
That if it's if the response is okay, would there still be need for that next?
So now by default, let's even try it. Let's try it. Okay, let me explain where that next comes in handy. Now this part here is not a middleware. I repeat, this is not a middleware.
Yes.
This is a middleware.
Yes.
Middleware is that you want to hold somebody or check or process something every time a request comes in. So you need to tell the middleware that you are done. Go next. That's where the next
more
comes
like
in.
a login function.
Not really. So let me explain very well, properly. So these are endpoints. And on every endpoint, they are supposed to perform an operation. When you say get token, it's supposed to what? Send you token. When you say work order, it's supposed to display all the list of work order. When you say get me work order for a particular number, it's supposed to do that. But the question is this: what if I want to run a function every time I run my endpoint? The function is independent of what the operation is supposed to do. This operation is supposed to give me the list of work order, but I want to check if the user is registered, or I want to log the activity of the person. And I want to do that every time I do this. How do I do that?
Okay.
That's what they call middleware.
Yes.
It's inside the request. It happens inside the request. So you can pass as many middlewares as you want. So you can do here like this and say controllers.log user. You can do something like this. You can do another controllers.delay user. Right? So in fact, let's create this delay. So if I do this delay like this, I will just tell it to write the code for me, because delay for 10 seconds. So I will just say, you should know me by now. delay by 10 seconds, delay by X seconds, accept seconds. Okay, so let that roll in, and then we implement that into the system. Okay, so smart enough, it implemented my go resp and then create a new. It's trying to get a query from here. Let me see how it's doing this. This is not what I was expecting it to do, but that's fine. We're going to run it. So it's not supposed to give me anything like so. So that's why you have to be very you need to look at what AI does for you. So this is not what I was expecting actually. So let me redo it in my own way. So I'm going to put this code because I need this code actually. So I'm going to remove all this guy. And what I want to do here is that I want to put the actual seconds as a parameter so that I can put in. That's what it did. That's what it did that somewhere. The seconds is supposed to be a integer. I'm looking for where it's come. I want to see what it used. Time duration. I don't want to write my code. Okay. I don't need to respond anything because it's supposed to happen. Duration, pause duration. This guy just went to go and write something. This is what I need to do. I just need to do that particular thing. Okay. Okay, so I'm thinking like I'm looking good. Let's give it a try. I think I'm looking good. Let's give it a try now. So I have a delay there, and the idea is that I want to delay all my requests. I told you why I did this when I did that. So let's go ahead and see if that will truly delay. Before we run that, let's first do our normal token. So this one is working well, no delay. How do we know if it actually delayed? Okay, let's give it a try. So let's do this one. And let's run it. So it's not changing. Okay, so what happened is we're supposed to delay it first before calling the authentication part. That's authentication middleware. So we want our delay to execute first, because if you notice, it showed almost immediately. So I want to first go and call token first so that we'll wipe the screen. Okay, let's wipe the screen off. So let's give it a try. So you can see that it's rolling. I'm sure that's the delay kicking in. And the idea is that in the next 10 seconds, it should then give us the right thing to do. So yep, you can see that that's working. So you can change that to like 5 seconds, or let's say 4 seconds. 4 seconds. I want to first clear it, but we don't need to clear it because the rolling button will show if it's actually running. So if I click that, you can see that it's rolling. 3, 4, and then it stopped rolling. So that is what middleware is. Middleware works in between trying to get to your endpoints. That's what happens. And you can roll as many in middlewares as you want. So most times they use them for authentication, rather for checking a lot of things. You can use it to check limits. If someone is trying to access your server now, for example, you can use it to say, hey, have you hit your limit for the day? Right? So you can, a lot of things you can use to check. It's not the actual function that is supposed to do. You can see that the actual function of this one now is supposed to be like maybe get the work order. All the actual function that they're supposed to do are supposed to be in their front. So you can see this one has generated update work order. Why this one will not be whatever it is that you want to maybe list, get work orders or something. Why this one can then now be other things. Get work order by ID, right? So do you see what is happening here? This is one-to-one, like, oh, work order, go and do this. Get work order is getting the work order. This is doing that. But when you have done a group thing like this, and by the way, it's not just happen for group, it happened for other ones as well. But that's when I was telling you about group, like that's the benefit for grouping your requests, because it's possible that you want to, secure a particular part, and you want to check while you're on that part, something should happen. So I gave you an example of this. Okay, so let me remove this code. You might need this delay for some reason, because maybe you are trying to test your loading effect, and then this browser is too fast for you to see it load. So you can just go there and knock yourself out, put like 40. You see the loading. And because sometimes when you're working with React, you want to see it's doing hot reloading. While it's doing hot reloading, you want to still be checking on that stuff. So you might want to put that delay as long as possible. Okay. Let's see what we'll have next. Now, do you notice that even though it had error, it's not stopping this thing from working? It's still working. It saves the last one that worked. So I think that actually delayed us a little bit, because we're trying to solve a problem that we couldn't solve at this time. That's for the Swagger initialization. So we kept running a code that was already there. Moving on. Another thing we need to look at is, how do you get list of data, or how do you connect to database? That's very simple, not so difficult. So let's do that, and then we'll call it. If we still have more time, we can go ahead and do other things, but let's connect to database. I'm gonna comment all these guys out so that they don't give us error. Let me just comment only one out. And this is not the final endpoint. We can still work on these guys later to give it their proper name and what have you. Now, connection to database is where we introduce some interesting things. Interesting things like environment variables, because it's not just database that need all those things. So how do we get, what are environment variables? Environment variables are things that, you don't want to share on your code. Apart from the fact that you don't want to share it in your code, you want to also isolate it and make use of it, on other platforms. So let's go ahead and see how we can connect to our databases. There are several methods. I'm literally thinking of which of the method to use right now. I'm looking for the method to use. So let me just go to, sometimes these folders will change that I'm using. I might end up changing these folders to actually match the best practice setup. So just to warn you ahead of time, those folders might change to meet up with best practices. So let me look for one of my projects that I can reference to. That way it gives us a very quick, starting point. I can even use the Ronix actually. I can even use the Ronix to start up. Now, talking about folder, let's start with playing with this folder thing and see what it's all about. That's naming structure. How you should properly put naming folder and things like that. What should happen? So we're gonna rejuggle the folders that you've seen so far. So sorry about that. Now, in a typical Golang project, you have several folders you need to worry about that you create. It's not like baked into the programming language. It's more of like guidelines that you are supposed to follow. It's good to have those stuffs are there for a purpose. such way so that we can be properly guided. Some of them I just say no, I would rather follow this instead of that. For me, for example, my main is at my root directory. Some guideline will say that put it inside command folder. I think that's too much. For me, I think that's too much. Why should I go and carry main inside command because I want to run it? So I think it should just sit under like so. So most of these guidelines are good. Pick the one that works for you and then you're good to go. But obviously we need to pick the command, we'll pick the ones we are running from what I'm about to talk about now. Now the first one is internal. The idea of internal folder is that everything you put internal are not supposed to be exposed. By now, you should know that your Go code is packaged in such a way that any program can actually interact with your, when I mean program, everything looking through your code, or if your code is published, you could actually look through every of those things. So when you do things and call it internal, it means, hey, I want this code I've written inside internal to interact with them. I don't want something from outside to interact with what I call internal. That's the idea, right, of this folder. Now, what are the things I want to control that I don't want anybody to meddle into? Example of those things is, you could argue my controllers. We could argue, like I said, that's why I say we could argue about it, my controllers. So, but I'm just going to put the internal like that, and I'll move things around as time goes by. So, because your controllers are internal to your application, you're not sharing your controllers with any other person. So I'm going to move it inside here, right? The next thing is I want to create another folder called pkg. That's package. Now your package is what your core of your program is, right? Is core of your program. If people are going to be interacting with your package or with your program, they should do so by interacting with your package. So anything that you put in your package is okay for people to interact with it. That's the idea of the package in there. Then I have my route. This route is going to get bigger over time. You will say, why do we need a special folder for route? You will see soon route. Okay. And what else? Templates. I'm not going to talk about templates for now. Templates are templates. You want to create some static HTML page to send mail. So I'm not going to talk about that because that one itself is another kettle of fish on its own. Okay, let's go and start doing some stuff. Now I'm going to go through the internals and do some, let's go to the package part. In the package, I want to do a folder called configuration. Inside the config, I'm going to do another file called config. Now, Go has a very funny way of naming files and packages, or defining what becomes the package name. Very important. Go has a funny way of deciding how you do your packaging. Let me say, for example, if this folder, you can see that this is the root directory of our main, and we have package main. Let's now say this is another guy. I'm having package config. Now, you can't have this config outside and call it config. You have to call it pkg. I'll repeat that again. If your Go file is sitting outside, it has to be called the folder name.
Okay.
Yeah, technically, but you say, why is main not called backend? If you remember, when I first deploy the main.go, it's picked backend as the name. Yeah. So, but I think there's an exception to that. So here, this one has to carry this. By the time you start seeing more code, it will now start making sense. If I add any folder file here, it will carry what? Routes as the package name. Just like when I created the Go, the folder, it carried the folder name as a package. You can't have, you know, internal dot controls. It doesn't work that way, right? So by the time we start adding more files, you start seeing how the package connects to each other. Going back to the config, why are we creating a config? Because I want to create a kind of structure in which I can have things work, like my connecting to my database and what have you. Okay, so that's the idea of what I want to do here. Now, the next thing I want to do here is to kind of create a structure. We're going to be using ORM. We're not going to be we're going to be using ORM. ORM is what we use to connect to database. Yeah, this object relation management. ORM, object relation management. Yeah. So and we're going to use one of the most popular one for Golang, and that guy is Gorom. So I'm going to open it up. It's very, very, very popular, guys. So you can't miss it. Fantastic ORM library for Golang. So I can't overemphasize how popular it is and how interesting it is. So to get it, you just go get and then we have it right there. But we are still far from testing it out now. The first thing we need to do is first connect to our database. But in connecting it, we need to start defining some things. That's why I had to bring it up. But let's go through it and see the site, you know, what it has to offer and how it works. These are the future it promises. You don't need to start looking at the features for now. Let's just see how to use it in the first place. Hey, this is long. Okay, let me just stay on this very simple part. This is how to open your database. However, this is your SQLite database. So this is not your MySQL, but there's also MySQL connection. This is, you know, how to connect to it, and then you have your connection here in a DB, and you can use it to do stuffs. You will see us use it very soon. I think they also did connection to MySQL. Okay, they didn't do connection to MySQL here, but we'll do that in our own code. Now, why do I have config like this? The config is supposed to be a way, you know, that your connection is supposed to be central in your entire application. Like you should be in one part of the code and say connect to database, get that work order, get this, get that. That's the idea. So that's why we are creating a config to be able to do all these stuff. There's no general guideline on how these things are supposed to be done, by the way. Go gives you a very free and do it anyhow you want yourself, but these are generally more like a best practice to do all these things. So we'll be learning, or we'll be doing quite a lot of stuffs at the same time while trying to connect to database. So what I want to do first is to create a variable that has some bunch of funny stuff. Some bunch of funny stuff. So the first thing is I'm going to I have this thing called environment, which I try to use to decide which mode I'm on. Either I'm in my live session, or I'm in a live environment, or I'm in development environment. By now you should know this. You know, I run 2 sessions, where when I'm testing locally and when I'm online. Now what I'm doing is I'm writing the code backward. Let me write it from from up downward. So I have this type called environment, and it's an integer. So what it does is a kind of an enum. Enum is a data type that allows you to use string to hold different value, and that translates to numbers. Okay, so what I'm doing here now is that I now say that, hey, whenever I say development, it means it's 0. Whenever I say production, it means it's 1. So I'm going to change this to debug. Well, let me just say development. Anyone you want to use. So it's all you. And then you can say live. So I use debug and live. Debug. And then live. I think dev is better. Development. and live is better. So we have that. And the next thing is for me, these are just going to be used inside what I'm doing here. The next thing for me to do is to now decide, create a global variable. This guy is a global variable. What I'm doing here now, I'm declaring a global variable that says that whenever I have something called mode, I can decide to say mode.dev or mode.live. That's the idea, because I've assigned this mode to an enumerator. That's what I call it. This is an enum. In programming language, generally, you call this enumerator, but of course, this is a type of integer that has, I can't remember the name, what it's called in Golang, but you're trying to create different value for this. Okay, now this secret, for every project that you do, you will have like a secret variable that you can use to push to some part of your code, right? For example, if I'm creating a JSON, I'm creating a, what's the word now? Token. I'm generating a token. You need to be able to push some secret into it. So this, like, I will be able to use this anytime I want, secret, and then it will use that to generate maybe a random code or something. So it's also fixed, something that will be fixed. And most of these things will be reading off environmental variable. What was that?
Your screen is off.
Okay, noted. That's
Your screen is off. It's not displaying.
That's noted. So I think it's from your end. What you can do is you can relog in. The screen is showing from my end. What about you, Felix? Are you seeing the screen? You can mute your end. You can relog in. The screen is showing from here. Okay, so can you confirm that you can see the screen, please, so that I can move on?
No, not yet. I'm trying to log in.
Okay, so what about you, Felix? Can you see the screen? Okay, so let's move on, guys. So I was talking to this other bit that has to do with secrets. So that's that secret part. Now, SMTP configuration has to do with email, by the way. I also have another tool for sending email. This is, yeah, I will set it up again for you guys. It's also straight away. So that there's so much things we're adding together at the same time, but that's fine. So let me show you this one as well so that you can see it. Again, go and start. Go to project and go and start. So I call it GoSend. Apparently there's something called GoSend already. I didn't know, but that's fine. Arrow, Wolo. I can't find GoSend. Okay, let me just look through my own account. It's not that popular. I just did it some days ago. Okay, so this is it here. It's called GoSend. And the idea is that it's used to send mail, and it supports templates and what have you. So I think at some point I explained it. We're not going to explain it now because it's going to take much of our time. It's just used to send mail. So I'm going to copy the code of installation so that it doesn't give us that error. So let's do go get, and we have that running. Okay, so what about the go rum thing? We need to also have that installed. Let me get the URL for that as well so that we can have it installed. Go rum. Nah, that's not it. So we have it here. I'm supposed to just copy this link and we should have it there. Okay, so we have those two guys sitting right there. The next thing is what we just did here is just create a bunch of variables that is accessible outside of, you know, this component. We can use it anywhere else. You guys will see how we're gonna make use of them. The next thing we want to do is to make sure that we set other parts of the program in action. How do we do that? So we kind of run, we initialize our configuration. We need to call a function to initialize everything. And this function will be called immediately we start our project. Guess where we're going to call this? In our main. Immediately we run this. So this is going to be called from where? Inside main here. You can execute it anywhere here. So, and that's to make sure that, you know, everything is initialized at the beginning of the whole thing. So this is going to be config.initialize. So, okay, I think it's better written this way. Automatically, you know, this guy comes in like so. So you can see the way it comes in. github.com, office_x, asset gear, pkg, package, then the configuration or config stuff comes in there. So don't worry about all this underlining thing. I think there's a major stuff, but by the time we start writing all this code, those stuffs we clear away. Let's move on to the next part. So on the initialization bit, there are quite a lot of things we want to initialize or want to do. You can see that the system automatically even did this one for me. And the idea is that you want to set a global variable, because that's what we did here. When you do something like this, right? What that means is that you can access this one from the package. So you can do config.db. And this db is a pointer to a connection that you're trying to make. And that's why to connect, once you do the initialization, this one is already available. It's a type of a pointer of Golang connection. So now you can now connect and do all these guys, all this story. So I'm gonna connect to database. So you can run that. So how do you connect to your database? This is what brought us all this. All the story we've been saying now is just to this point. So the connection to the database is pretty simple. I'm trying to see the best way to handle the connection so that we don't have so I currently use okay, I think we're going to be using MySQL. Yeah, we're going to be using MySQL to connect to the system. So let me get the connection using MySQL. So let's see. Now I need to make sure that I have the drivers that I need for this, because now I'm not importing anything. Nothing is getting imported. So we need to import MySQL driver, or we need to get it. Remember what we've just done is that we have the Golang. We've not import drivers for this one. So this one is giving us another issue. So one of the driver we need to install is Golang for MySQL. So that is running underneath. Now the next thing is that we need to I need to extract this one from here, because this one is too long. I need to create so that it can be somewhere we can easily manage it. I need something that you guys can easily understand. So if I do DNS is equal to, DNS is supposed to be like the connection string. to connect the database. So this one can be root. Do I have password on my system? I hope this thing will allow me to put empty password like so. Then my database is 3308. Then asset gear is my database. I'm gonna ignore all these other ones. Now I'm gonna hold my error accountable like so. I don't think I've written so much Golang code, with you guys, but I think this is starting to get serious. This is supposed to handle error handling in Golang. This one is hold for error purpose. When you try to connect, it gives you, it's either it connects or it gives you error. You can see that this returns the object that we have, that's the DB, or a returns object. In Golang, you can return more than one thing, and that's what is happening here. Okay. So the next thing is that I want to check if there's actually an error. So if there is, if this is not equal to this, then I want to do something else instead of panic. Panic will blow up the system. So do something safe like this. So I need to see why this is a problem. That's not supposed to give me that error. Okay. Okay, so this is the way it's supposed to connect. Okay. So let's continue. I think you guys were going off and on the network, but I think it's back now. So what I've been trying to do is to connect to database. It's just number one, the connection string. Number two, to check for error when you try to connect, or when you try to connect, you receive, it returns two value, the error and also the database, and then you are good to go. So if eventually it connects, you have your connection inside DB and you can work with it. Now let me see what is happening to all our error, why errors are popping up everywhere. Could not import this guy, no required module. Okay, so for now I can literally just ignore this guy so that we can have peace. Let peace reign. Okay, so everything looks good for now. I'm gonna ignore secret mode and the rest, even the server port. In fact, let me just remove it to make it look less threatening. Let me leave it like this. Now let me now start trying to fix what is going on, because I have no idea why everything just got blown up. So of course, because I moved things around, okay, I think I get now. I moved some of the folders around, so it affected where things are. So one of the ways that you can easily correct this is to just delete some stuff and let it rebuild by itself. But even that didn't fix it. Okay, let's go ahead one by one and try to see what the error is. Missing go some So there's something we'll call go mode tidy. Let me try and run that. If it's to tidy things, that's this one here. I think it's fixed it. It's called go mode tidy. You could actually run it by saying go mode tidy. So it actually fixed all the nonsense that we're seeing. I have no idea why it was giving all the red signs and everything like that. So we have that there, tidy, and then it fixed the whole thing. All the red guys are gone, nowhere to be found. So let's continue with what we're doing. Now this is supposed to initialize the stuff. So how do we then run an actual work order list. Now let's even try and see if we can connect first. Or let me check my database. So this is my database. We're trying to connect to this. Let me change this P, asset gap P. Let me see if I have something in work order here. Okay, I don't have anything in work order here. So let me use this one, asset gap P. So let's go ahead and do that. That becomes our database. Remember that we have the database here. This is the name of the database. So let me see if there's anything outstanding. Now, the next thing for us is to be able to pull data from the database. Not that fast, because there are still some things we need to implement. We need to create the objects. ORM is object relational database. So we've not created the object part. What we just successfully doing is that we've connected to the database, if successful. So what we can do is to actually run and see if we are connected. So this is air running. I will just need to shut it down and run, or just check the last execution to see if it did not give any error, because we said it should say something if there's an error. So from here, it looks like everything worked nicely, because if there was an error, trust me, it's going to say something here. Just to show you that this code is running, I can come outside here and say something and say failed to connect to database. So if you look at it, did you see that? Failed to connect to database. So if that error had occurred, it's going to give us that information here. So I'm going to cut this one off because there was no error actually. So there was no error. So this connection kind of work for now. So the next thing is trying to connect to the data. Now, in order for us to connect to the data, we need to do what I call object. Like I said, we need to create a form of object, and that's where the model comes to play. Model comes to play. What is model? Model is what demo or describe the data. The model is what describe the data. So now there goes, where do we put our model? So it's an internal stuff to the system, so we can put it inside here. I will put it inside internal model, model or models. Okay, let's just say model. Then you can call it work order dot go. And the idea of this is that, do you see the way this thing just automatically pick model as the package name, just as I've said? So the idea of the model is to create an object replica of the table that you want to do. So I'm going to be very basic, just to save time. We can do type. You can see that the guy is doing stuff for us, is creating it for us. There is two parts to it. The first part is the table structure. The second part is the mapping of the table name, the mapping of the object to the table name. So the table name is called work order, like this, while the object obviously is called the work order, like this. Okay, so let's try and explain. Let me explain. So we're creating a type of structure. Structure gives you more properties or more ability for you to define more objects. Object kind of review. This is the closest thing you can get to objects in Golang. By the way, Golang is not an object-oriented programming. It kind of speaks from bit of object. It just picks all the whole thing, you know, best of all the words. Yeah, so it picks best of all the words and then smash it together. So you have this going on here, and I think the definition of this one is work order. Work order, that's the primary key, because it has to match work order ID. And now this is how I want to create some bunch of fields, then I will explain one or two things to you guys. Just give me a minute. Let me have this other structure. Let me add description. Okay, let me do date. Okay, I'm trying to remember this guy. I can't remember the date. Is it date time? Okay, I'll figure that out later. Then I have the description. I want to pick the columns that are important. Work order, assets, status, yes, description. So I will stop here. Is it timer or time? I think time. Let me check time dot. Yep, it's time. Okay. Now, this Golang, this one here, what you have inside here is a feature of Golang that allows not only Golang, even I think Python has it, allow you to infer some kind of settings on a particular field, right? So that any package can look at this structure and infer some things on this. Like, it's a way for you to tag a particular variable or entity. Just look at it as a tagging, and the tagging goes all the way deep based on the whosoever is looking at it, right? I can just say tag something and say name is equal to James. I don't know who is going to be looking at this work order. When I mean who is looking at it now, internally inside my coding, remember that we're using Golang as an ORM stuff. So they have created their own tagging system such that if I tag this particular attribute or field as primary key, it knows what to do with it. That's just what tagging is all about, or labeling is all about. And it's not only Golang that can do this thing. There's several other packages that make use of tagging. So another one is JSON. Now, what this JSON does is that it gives you ability for you to specify the name of the value when it's exported to JSON. Because now, what becomes the name of this guy? Is he small letter D and whatever? How is it going to be named? Is he all uppercase? You providing this label gives it a kind of name to use. So you are saying JSON, and the proper name you want to call it is date underscore this. You can do the same for other one and say, instead of having description in full, you want to go with DESC. And this one, instead of having the full name, you can say ID. This is just experimental. And then you notice that there are more other tags. You can see that I'm combining more than one kind of label on it. This is for JSON, this is for Golang. You can add more for other tools, but these are the tools that you will be dealing with, for now. So there are more feature you can add. Like I said, I'm just sticking to this for now. Okay, this other one is for you to be able to connect to the table and say the table name is called this. You're gonna see where this will come in handy. This must be done, right? Especially if your table does not flow with the definition of Golang standard. Golang has its own standard of naming convention. I'm not gonna go into that. So if you are not following what they are doing, you need to explicitly state what your own table name and structure looks like. Okay, this is the object set. The next thing that you need to do is for you to be able to query your table, or your object, to fill in the object with information. There are several ways you can do that. I'm just going to use something very simple that we can easily manage. So I'm going to go to where we have, this is where we're going to go to. We're going to create controllers and call get all, or let's just say get all work orders, right? That's going to be a lot. It's fine. Okay, let's get all work orders. So we're going to create a new file and call it work order. And you notice that it's under controller, right? So we can create this and do function. Let me get the code sample from, did you want to do something for me? So let me get something from here. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do here now is that I want to actually go and connect to database. I've connected to database. That's fine. The next thing is for me to use the Golang feature to be able to get all the data in work order. I'm not going to do something, very futuristic for now. So something very subtle and simple. And you can see that it's helping me out already. So it's helping me out already. So let's use the code. Now, the first thing is that I declare a variable that says work orders, or the work order, right? Notice what is happening here. I'm providing an array of work order. What we did here is just one work order. That one that we did is one work order. So if you want more of them, you have to use array like so. The next thing is that you want to get the DB connection. Remember, our DB is capital letter DB like so. And to get to it, you have to use config.db like this. This is how you will get to it. Config.db.find. This find is coming from who? From Golang. That's GoRM. How do you call this? GoRM. Okay, GoRM. So it's getting that from there. Now, what I want to do now is that I want to find all. I'm not just finding one. I want to find all the work order. And it's as simple as just doing this, right? So now that I've gotten that information, now so I need to explain something new now to you guys so that it helps you understand what's going on. And that's called pointers. If you are used to C++, I know you have not done C++ as stuff. There's something we call pointers. Even in Visual Basic is available. Pointers. Yeah. Yes. So it's called pointers. Whenever you see this means pointers. So this means pointers. So when you also deal with this, it means that you are injecting whatever you resolve into this. So it's as good as saying, unfortunately, this does not return anything. If you notice, this find does not return anything. Is that it injects what it has done or what it has found inside the interface. Interface is a way for you to specify any data type. It's a safe way to say, oh, anything can goes in there. That's the thing there. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about pointers and everything for now. So let's go ahead. Pointer is that you are pointing to the main source. You can't change the data in a pointer. You can update it. It's a read-only kind of a thing. It points to a memory, right? So let me just say work orders. I don't know why. The spelling, that's what is having problem with. So that becomes our data. So what you're expecting here, we'll see it. Let's check if it works. Okay, but we're still having error. Oh, something beautiful just came up. It's tried to do document. Good. I like this. So it did this for this. Why is it go doc? This is not the summary now. Okay. So we don't have time to fix our, what's it called, Swagger for now, but over time we're gonna fix it and then all these things are gonna come to life. So let's see what main is shouting about. So main is shouting about this guy. What's his problem? So I'm going to copy this to make sure that, okay, yeah. So there's a T here, which is not supposed to be, and there's double get. You see why I'm all for compile code. It makes everything safe. Okay, so let's try and see our preview and check out if our code will give us taste of a good output. Okay, our endpoint is supposed to be v1/work orders. Let's make sure our endpoint is correct. So we'll just say, let me add s to it. Work orders. I don't like this. So let's give it a try. So it gives us assets denied because I think we did some things here. So we can disable this one so that gives us the pass and not limit us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out this one here like so that it can allow us to not bother about the authentication part. Let's give it a try again. Good. We are all good. Let's turn it to JSON. So this is what we have now. We have our message successful, data came out, and then we have a data array of this, guys. So it's a lot. So it's a lot of data, but that's what it is that we have there. So we've been able to connect to the server. How do you now add more things? I won't be going into the advanced form of joining tables. Maybe I should do a simplest form of joining table, because you are aware that inside work order we have, complex stuff, like we have table that relates to another table, right? So I can bring in the status. Immediately I bring in the status, what do you expect? My status will be available here too as well. So I have my status, as close like that. So I'm sure this is what you want to see as a developer, as a front-end developer. You just want your data to always look like this, right? Even though the data can be anything, but the consistency of you knowing that you always have data and always have the status to check your error and what have you. So let me add more columns. Now I wanted to be able to decide and to choose departments. Very important. So okay, it came up with asset ID for me. Okay, let me bring the asset ID up. Now it's already writing it for me, but I'm going to go along with it and show you what happens and how it works. Let me explain. Now, okay, even though we need to do some lookup, right? So let me prepare that. Let me prepare that so that I can explain the full details of how it comes to that. What I want to explain now is how you do join. How to do join with Golang and show other data. Now we want to use the asset part. Let me check in work order. I think in work order we have the assets. Now the way the join works in assets is that, or rather in Golang, is pretty simple. Number one, this is the field you want to join, meaning that you want to join with other fields. There are several methods, by the way. This is not just the only method. There are several methods, but this is more of like one of the simplest way to join table. So if you refresh, obviously you will see that you have a new asset. Why is the asset 0? That's interesting. What happened? Let me confirm from the data, then I will come back. Let me see if our asset is 0. Okay, at some point our asset became 0, but I need to fix that result so that we don't waste time. Let me go to department ID. I don't want to waste time on this session. Okay, department is showing something. So I can call this, you can literally call it any name you want to call it, the fields, right? So we're going to be using the department. It's still the same methodology, right? I'm about to show you. So you can see the department data is there. I don't want to start wasting time to debug one thing that will take us forever. Now it's still the same idea. We want to be able to show the department name because the department belongs or is available in another table. So in that case, the way you do it is to also create a department object. We need to create a department object. So I'm going to leave this one like so to stay on top. Of course, you can create another file and call it department.go and do all what you need to do. But I'm going to put them in the same place just to save time. So I'm going to call this department, and I'm sure it's going to be smart enough to do the needful for us. So nah, that's not what I'm asking you to do for me. Function, or rather it's not supposed to be a function, it's supposed to be a type. Department, that's why it's doing its own thing. Now this one, now you now need to now start defining all the stuffs for the department, like the ID and the name. Then you can pass other things that you want to do, which is fine. You are done with this. Remember, there's the second part of it, which is to tell it what the name of the database is. So I'm going to copy this and replace it, or rather, so that I can just do copy and paste. In this case now, the department name is not just called department, or rather the table name is not called department, it's called core department. That's what the thing is in the database. So that's the flexibility that this gives you to be able to override the whatever table it is that you're doing. The next part is for you to be able to now link it to this guy. How do you link it to the work order? Very, very simple. And the way to do that is to come here and say department, right? And then the data type has to be what? Department2. Now let me explain. This one here is just the name that it's just a name, right? Work order, date opened, description. While this one is the data type that it contains inside it. This is a time, this is a string, this is an integer. So this one is also called a department, which you've created here. So that's what you're doing. Yes, kind of, yeah. So if you now come to this part, you can now say this is the name that you want to call it at the backend, or rather in the JSON part. So you can call it DPT. Now, another thing again, that is where the, how will I call it now? This is where you add a little bit of thing. So it's not just done like this. There's one more thing you need to be able to do. You need to be able to tie this department to this in such a way that this knows that, oh, I'm trying to look up the primary key of this inside here. So you need to put a condition or a tag or a label here that the system will know that, hey, this department is tied to this one here. So you need to tie them together in some way, in some form. How do you do that? Is by specifying go_run parameter that says, it says foreign key is equal to, you use this column to specify is equal to department ID. So you can see the tie in there. Look at it very well. So you use, why is this one saying department? Okay. I like to fix my problem immediately I see it. I can't think of what it's saying. Okay. So I don't know what I just resolved, but it's not showing me any color again. Okay, that's fine. So we now have, this is a way for you to say, hey, the foreign key is this guy here on the left hand side. So that's the way the system uses it to tie and know what to do. Now the next thing is for us to test and see if it works. So if I do refresh and do this, notice what happens here. automatically builds this stuff for you. And why is this guy 0? I'm gonna figure out why it's 0 soon. So I think it's because this one is ID like this. It's case sensitive. So this should be small letter, small letter. So I think both of them will work now. Yes, so that's why the even the, but I'm gonna check this one later. Okay, so you have that going like that for it. You have the name of the department. Oh, it's still not showing. No, department is still not showing. Something is missing. Something is missing. I think we still need to do some linking. ID, department ID, foreign key. See that capital letter D, eh? Let me even check the database to make sure that that's the yeah, I know. Let me check something, because this guy has a funny way of how it works. Let me check. So there's a configuration I'm missing somewhere, and this relatively happen if your database is not, you know, in compliance to what it is that they have. So while we are trying to connect, we are supposed to check the kind of database that we're running to put a particular disclaimer as that, oh, this kind of database we're running, oh, this is what you should pay attention to. That happens at the point of connection here. At the point of connection here, if you notice, there's a part that says configuration here. So here you can configure the kind of data structure, you know, that you have. So you can see here that says default timeout, naming strategy, all sort of things, right? But we're gonna see what's causing this now. So one of the things that I want to do is to automatically, or try to tell Golang to know the ID, because from here Golang kind of misses this ID here. It's not getting it, and that's why it's not linking this with this. So let me try and check one more thing, especially when it comes to defining the ID here. So I need to now tell it that, because there's a column for us to specify what the ID is. I hope this works. So it's called Golang column department ID. So this is to enforce our own ID, you know, kind of a thing in that part. I would do the same thing to the column for this one. That's the parent, so that it knows that, hey, this is the ID you should be focusing on. Then there's one more thing I want to do, is reference. I'm sure by now you'll be like, there's so much things. So, but the funny thing is that the more you start doing this, the easier it gets. So there's one thing I added. I think that thing should have been there, and is this reference. I don't think this column is working on it, but let's give it a try. So I think these references is what I'm missing. Personally, I think these references is what I'm missing. Let me give it a try and see what it is. Okay, references is still not showing up in the, it's still not making it work. And I don't want to do the manual process, or rather the dry process. There's a way you can, like I said, this is not just the only way to execute this. There are several ways. Let me check the table and see what I have in the Okay, department ID. Let me see what happens if I turn this to this one, because that guy has a way of doing his own thing. No? Okay, let me check something else. Our department is showing, but it's not doing the join. Another thing I can do, I can tell it to check the statement for me actually. So this is in line for you to debug and see what's going on. It's another way to check, and I can do, oh, I think it's my fault. Sorry, I think the code is not complete. Yeah, I didn't complete the code. Let's go ahead and complete the code. So even though I have done the department like so, it doesn't load automatically into here. I still need to do one more work. And where is that work supposed to be done? Is here. Now, what I've just done is that I say give me work order, but I need to be able to tell it that, yes, I need to be able to quote and unquote like join. So it's, yes, so yes, into it. Yeah. So, and the way to kind of call the join is called preload. Even though there's a join on its own, there's something they call join on its own, but I'm not going to talk about that one now. So you are now bringing department into it. So this should work. Let me refresh. This should work. So now that this is working, I want to go and delete all the things I did to know what was, if that was what was causing it. So I'm going to delete this guy, especially this reference, and I think the reference is okay, but I'm going to delete it. I'm going to remove all the column I said, because I like the code to be as simple as possible. Code shouldn't be, you shouldn't be putting things that are not necessary. You should only write what parts are necessary in any particular code. And that way your code is looking simple and all good to go. So the only thing that we just added, because everything looks okay, the only thing that we just added was the fact that we had to come here and say preload department inside the work order when you are finding it. So let's give it a try. Okay, that didn't work. So I have another reservation, and that reservation is that reference. Let me check the references. That references is supposed to come in under this part here. Yes, this is my other reservation that I have that might be causing this stuff. So the column is working. So is the column, is the major column. Let me remove the reference and then run the code now. Everything is broken. So let me now put back the reference and see. So everything needs to be in place. Okay. From this reference needs to be in place. The column needs to be in place, and the column. So we need to put, after we must have specified the primary key, then we are referencing to this. I think this reference is talking to the ID here you specify here. By the way, just a point of view to reference, this one does not have anything to do with anything. Or whatever you do most of the time is this ID and this ID that you are working with. The foreign key here is that saying inside this table, this is the foreign key. And most times I try as much as possible to keep my keys the same. So if I'm saying department ID inside department, wherever I'm using department is still called department ID. my work order, I still call it department ID. The only time I change the name to something else is if there are multiple references to it. So example of multiple references is that in this table called work order, I have people that participated in the work order, like someone that created it and someone that approved it. So, and they are both referencing the same table. So let's see how that works. If I say created by user ID, so that's a good example. So it's going to mimic the same feature that we did here. So I say created by user ID, which is int, and then JSON. And by the way, before we go ahead with this, I want to remove this one here. This department ID is not needed anymore. The way to hide this information is to do something like this. You say dash. When you do dash, it hides that information from your view, export view. So if you try and view it again now, you won't see this one again. This one now removes, but is needed for the system to map what is mapping here. So let's go ahead and do the created by user ID. And again, we're going to be removing this one because we don't need the ID, but we need it to do the connection. It has automatically created the column for us, like right, as in tell us the right column for it in the database. Okay, so the next one is we want to do the whole thing at the same time. Remember that we need to also create the user table. So there's also a user table that is called core user. So, and it's having this information. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. So I'm going to replicate this one. Since that's what we're working with now, I'm going to put it at the top so that we can see the information immediately. So that is our user there. And this one is small letter U. This name, I'm just going to pick one of the names and leave the rest. So I'm going to pick their surname and put that as surname there. Okay, that's the only information we're picking. Like I can pick as more information as I want. For now, that's the only information I want to pick. Okay, now I can duplicate this one and have it here so that this one then becomes created by, and this one then becomes user. This becomes user, right? Then this becomes created by. Remember that this is JavaScript, this was going out. Then the foreign key is now this one. Wait, let me get it correctly. So this is where it's important for, you can see where this whole thing now will become important now, or will be making sense now. Now let me reduce the screen because I can't be scrolling left, back, and center. So this created by is the same thing, like I said here, of this table, while the reference in the major table is called user ID, because if you go to the table, it's called user ID here. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Now the next one is, because you're going to be having more than one users inside work order, not because there are multiple people creating it, there are other columns that also speak to user table, which is maybe the person that closed the work order. Most of the time is always blank. But let me look for supervised by. So you have several tables that speak to, okay, so you have supervised by, that's sup user. Let me see other table. Let me just focus on close by. I think close by is better. So I can just duplicate these two sections. In fact, I think it has done that for me. Okay, it has done that for me. And what I need to do is I'm checking if there's anything out of place. So it looks good. Let's run it and see if it works. By the way, it won't work because we need to also work preload. But let me run it so that you see. So you can see that these ones are not working yet because we need to preload. Very important. Even though the data is there, you need to load it when you're calling, when you're pulling or populating the data. So we go to where we used it, which is here. So I'm going to write, you can see that the AI has tried to preload the information for me by doing these bits for me. So if I do that, it's so long. So what I want to do is I want to break the information into something that is better to read. So Golang has this ability for you to break your code this way. So after the dot, you can break and then come and continue what you are doing at the downline. So the whole thing can also be wrapped as one single line, but at some point it becomes too long. So let's check out what is happening here. So if you look at it, you can see that the names are there. It's showing the name because created by, let me see. Okay, yeah. I want to make sure that it's showing both, because for some we have 0. I want to see where we have both in place, because sometimes the data is a little bit not available at some point. So what I can do is I can check the ID, but that's for us to investigate. Okay, so this one is showing. This one is showing correctly now. So you have the same person that created it was the same person that closed it. And you can see that part is working correctly. Now you ask me, how do you know what to put here? What you put here is depending on what was done here. What you did here, that's this one here, is what would determine what you are going to write here. Okay, so I think we've come, let's now try to round up the whole thing and put everything together. By now, you should be able to query a database, which you've seen me doing. I just queried a database. If you needed to query a one single data, is also straightforward. I think we should do that quickly, and then we call it a day. You can always use, make sure you guys use AI to check out, to look out things, right? So don't just try and figure out things yourself. You can also try and use AI to, help you with things and what have you. So let's quickly look at if I want to get by ID. So I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to do get work order by ID. I need to create this one. I go to work order. I'll just tell it to write it for me, and I hope it does a good job. So it does something for me, but I don't know if it's good yet. Okay, so it does this for me, and let me explain this code, what is happening here. Now, whenever you have a parameter, this is how the parameter gets saved, and then whatever you put inside here, as you can see that I typed ID, like this. Whatever, if you typed BBB, that's what you are going to use in this part here. So because we said ID doesn't make any sense to anybody. It's not because it's the ID, it's because what it is you put there. You can put title, you can put value, whatever it is, but ID makes sense. So since it's ID, we called it, that's what will transpire, and that's what will be available in the parameter. So what this is doing is that, number one, this one is, for me to use later in the code. This part is I'm holding the ID, and I think this guy needs to be converted to number at some point. Then what is then doing, you can also convert this to number, by the way, because this is a string. You can convert this to number just to be safe. That's by the way. Now notice that we're getting one work order, not multiple work orders. In this case, we're getting one work order, that's normal. And then the result is this just holding the variable to catch error, not to do anything, just to catch error. Whenever you are using your DB preload or DB search or whatever, especially querying database, you are going to be injecting what you have inside this. So you can see that this now is being injected by using this value. Then your condition that you are using to check for the value is ID. This is automatically using the primary key to search. There are other ways in which you can find, right? You can find using where clause. By the time you go to the Golang website, you will see quite a lot of things. What I'm just showing you guys is basic. So let's just go to the website and let me just show you one or two things. So if I go to the documentation now and say I want to query, this just say I want to query database. So you can see some stuffs, like this is even advanced. let me not use query, let me use find, because query is advanced. Let me just say find. Let me not go advanced query. Let me see overview, because I want something basic but that gives you an idea of what's going on. Okay, let me even use this one, the example. Yes, this is a very good one. Now you can see that I say find first. First means it will only find one. No, that's what first means. It will only find one. And now you can do this by finding a primary key. This is exactly what we are doing. Exactly what we're doing. Now, if you want to find with another parameter, you say you can put it as string and then put question mark and put the value here. So this one says find product with code. This code is a column inside products, obviously. Then other things applies. You can read other ones. This is just to give you an idea of what's going on. So the same thing me saying like this. So it's me saying work order ID is equal to this. So this is the same thing. But what I've done here is that I've explicitly stated that it's work order ID I'm searching from, which is not necessary. Right. So moving on. If there were no error, so you can see this guy is making good use of not found. You can see the way it does respond.not found. And you don't need to return error. It will return the not found 404 thing. And if eventually no error was occurred or nothing happened, it will say okay and then return work order. You see. So let's give it a try and then call that work order. So we have one work order we can use. Let me just copy this number, which is this number, whatever it is. I will just change the endpoint and put that there. And they say work order not found. Okay, something is fishy. Something fishy is going on because the work order is supposed to be found because that work order is existing. Now, how do I start debugging this issue? So let me check what is happening in the output. One of the good things about what is happening here is that whenever you run your SQL query, it bleeds out here in the terminal and shows you exactly what is happening. Now, there's an error in the system. It's not about the fact that the work order was not found, but it's the fact that there's an error in the column or in identifying the primary key. Very important. Now, if you read the SQL statement itself automatically, you notice that it was using something else as a primary key for us. I told you something the other time that Golang use a specific way automatically detects the field by itself. So it has gone to decide that this is how you wrote your field using this case, but that's not what we did in our own actual code. So we would have fixed that in our configuration, but I don't have time to tell it that now because I have to start looking for the settings. So here is what you do. You have to correct this notion from the setup here and tell it that, hey, my work order ID is not called this. It is called whatever I want to call it now. And that's where you see that we have to specify column individually because apparently it was changing it for us. So you specify column and then what's the column? Work order ID. So in fact, after this, we're going to go and check it. I think we should go and check it. It's very important because we can't be doing this on everything. So you can see that it's suggesting that we change everything because if you are now checking by description, it will be using its own auto naming convention to do its thing. Another thing again is that we want to report the correct error because this is not the right error. This is the wrong error. So you can return the right error by, you can return error by doing this. So I want to return, well, typically the right error. So if I come here, instead of me just putting work order not found, I can say, hey, return what you say it is here by doing, I don't want to do anything. Okay, so you can see that it gives us something. I can just say error. So later you can code for not found, but I'm not interested in that now. I just want it to return error that makes sense. But now we'll not see that error again. But let's check. If we do not see the error, I want to force that error to come out. So now it worked. We didn't see that error again. Like I said, I want to force the error to come out. So I'll go and delete these bits. In fact, let me just put a wrong field. I just put a wrong field in there just to force the new error to show. So you can see that the error now is making sense, saying error, this is this unknown column, that in your where clause. Yeah, even though this error is not smart for users. Now, how can we do it in such a way that Golang use a specific format of naming nomenclature? Now, like I said, I have to dig up how to do that. So let me try and dig it up. So let me see where that one is now. I think it's inside this part. So this is where we're going to do the configuration. Now, I hope that there is a settings there that specify the kind of configuration that we have. So let me see if there are any form of way we can do that. So first of all, we have a place. So I'm going to bring this out because this is where the issue is. But before we go ahead, let me run this so that you see that it has error. So this is also saying that this work order ID. So we have a setting here under the configuration where you can do, I think it's under naming strategy. Remember I showed you guys on this naming strategy the other time. Under naming strategy, we have something that says singular table. Long story. I can't start explaining singular table now. Well, let me explain it. Singular table allows you to, most people would prefer users versus user. So singular table should be false. I prefer saying user because everything there would then be plural. So for me, singular table is false, and no lowercase. No lowercase. No lowercase is true. I hope this will fix it, as in this setting will fix that. Hopefully. So let's check it if it will fix it. So let's run the code and see what it is using. Now, as you can see, it did fix it. Just for you to say it fixed it. So that means that if we go and remove those department ID that we wrote, it should work. Just another test. Let's delete this just to do a quick test. Let's delete this one and save again. And then let's run it again. We'll see the error. It's using work order ID. So if we bring back this method, meaning that no lowercase, don't use this your lowercase stuff, right? We said true. It should not use lowercase. We say true. So it now worked. Now let's now go and remove all the places we have column. Hopefully it will work. Let me go to, especially when we are doing all work orders, which is at this part where we wanted to check the department. So let's check if it worked, because funny enough, I use Golang very well and I use it without me specifying column. So I'm going to remove all this part I've said column should be. Let's just test for department alone, and if that works, it means we are doing good. So let me go for department as well. Like I said, I want the minimalist configuration that I can do. I don't want to be configuring everything every time. So let's run it, and fingers crossed the department should show. Yes, department is showing. So that actually did a lot. So all those parts where we have column, we don't necessarily need to specify column for them anymore. This configuration actually saves us. That's this configuration here. Saves us a lot of stress. And this is because everybody have their, ways of setting up their database columns, which one is better, or the preferred one. That's the one that says S now, for example. So if you says S, it automatically do it. The reason why it's working for us is because we automatically said what? That we automatically decided and enforced our own table. That's why it doesn't have any choice than to use our table. But if we didn't run this function, it will automatically decide for us and call it users. Right, that's the idea. And if we say it should not use it, it will just use small letter for us. So an example of this one will be, this one will not even work because it will just use, let me try this one. Let me remove this and see what it calls it. But let me first make sure that I've removed all the column, and then let me run it again and see what it does this time around. So this is working well. The next thing is for me to delete this one. And let me run it again. Yep, it's not working. And that's because it couldn't figure out where the underscore will come in. The same thing with this one. This one too will not work because the table does not match the name of what I'm trying to execute. But if the table matched exactly, you won't need to run this one anymore. Okay, so we have our work order list of all work orders, and you can also get a particular work order. These other things also apply if you are trying to do update, patch, delete, and what have you. So you also have other parameters to worry about. Now with these, you technically don't need to worry about writing SQL, but you might want to write SQL if you want to, do granular or more sophisticated stuff. But most of the time, this actually get the job done for you. It's called, it's ORM now. It's ORM. So it's not about NoSQL. It's ORM. NoSQL is different. NoSQL means that you're not writing SQL, is a file-based, document-based access. So let me see. So ORM is a very big topic, right? Which I try as much as possible to not talk too much about. It's called object relational mapping object to database. So it's a long story. You can go and read it up. There's a controversial stuff about it because sometimes it can be slow, but it's very fast to getting your code up and running, because there's a lot of things that the ORM does for you that is magic, and everything magic is expensive. It's expensive, so you can imagine, this is an example. You can go and read up the stuff, read about it, ORM, and the talk about it. So this example, what ORM is, reasonable get person. And by the way, OAuth also use ORM. That's the whole point of OAuth. We also use ORM. So you can do person.getSten, and then you have the person objects, and you can do all sort of things for on that. So challenges, where is it? I saw challenges now. Yeah, challenges. A variety of difficulties arise when considering how to match an object. Okay, these are the implementation. Okay, here comes the end of the session. Do you have any question? Any question that you want me to address? Okay, so good question. So based on the Ronix, what I will advise you to do, you can mute your end, please. So based on the Ronix side, now because the Ronix itself came with a template, right? What I wanted to do for us to do is to, apart from the fact that I'm sure I've added a lot of things to the Golang stuff, right? So, and I didn't want the Ronix to be a too much heavy project. I want it as lightweight as possible. I don't think we're going to be using that approach anymore, because remember I said that Ronix is supposed to be like a framework kind of a thing, and it's kind of slowing the whole thing down, even though that's not on you, because I know that I wanted to do a separate framework on its own. So let me now give you the assignment to do, what to work on, so that it helps you to pat your way on what you are doing. You are still working majorly on the front end part in terms of the look and the feel. So don't need to start working about login, all those things. Just provide the form. Clicking should just be going to the next page, like just rendering data. At least now you have access to the data. I'm sure we gave you the database at some point, so you can connect to it. You saw how easy it is to connect. So I wanted everything to start from afresh again. You can use, most times you will need to just copy and paste all what you've done from that end. I don't have the time to set it up now. You need to copy and paste and put it there. So before we go, I will show you how to push. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to your account that I couldn't add to this. So all the things you've been doing on there, you can just copy it and paste and put on this platform. So okay, hold on. So let's go to GitHub. So that's on Office Line. Okay, that's under, is this, okay, settings, team. Okay, so what's the details? Go ahead. I'm listening. I'm waiting now. Go ahead. It will accept it now. Go ahead. Okay, so you can mute, please mute. So let's now go with how the Git process work. Felix, you can explain later to him, because you have more experience with pushing, and we've been doing that lately together for like a month now. So you can explain how it is. I will explain it again now. So I'm trying to, this guy is not initializing. I think we've messed up with this guy. So I think we've messed up with the copy. I know what is happening. So I will just set it up now. So there is this Git is missing. Column. So the Git needs to be available. This Vite needs to be in front end here. Okay. So let me pull it up again. Okay, so now the way we're going to be working is this. I'm going to first of all start the project by adding git flow. So if there's no git flow in your system, you can initiate it. I think it doesn't even really matter if you initiate or not, but repository contains unchanged. So okay, I'm just gonna stash all these guys. I'm sure you know what stash is. Stash is keeping your code and needing to go and get it later when you want it. Why did I just do that? I think I staged it. I was supposed to. What did I just do? Let me check what I did. So why is it still here? I didn't pick everything. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to apply stash back again. So why is it now saying 30? Okay. Wahala. Okay, some are here. Okay. So let's do that again. So I want to stash everything, and the idea of stash is that keeping the file for later use, because what I'm about to do now is not allowing me to do it. So I thought as much. It's still not doing what we want it to do. Well, let me close this one here. Okay, can I stash 2 times? So let me do. Okay, let me try and do it in 2 batches. 2 batches. On stage. Okay, let me first stash this one. Then let me stash this one as well. Oh, that's stage. Stash. So the idea is we're keeping, so it's not even stashing. Okay, so what I will do is I'll just put it on main directly. So I'll run it over main, then do what I need to do. So it's not letting me do what I need to do. So on main, what I want to do now is I'm staging this one. Okay, so I'm putting everything and we're pushing it online. We don't need to push everything. No, there are some things that we don't actually need, especially inside here. So we don't need this guy. Okay, there's a couple of things we don't need as well. And those things are gonna be very heavy. So these are front end. We don't need Node.js, but it's not, I don't think I'm seeing Node.js here. There's no Node.js folder yet, which is kind of awkward, but that's fine. So let's load all this. Let's load this guy in. Rockets. I like to use rockets. Okay, so we'll have all those guys in. Now it can allow me to do what I want to do. So I want to initiate a git flow kind of a thing. Git flow initialize. Later we'll set up online viewing stuff that is under workflow. We'll set up that later. So we have our code on a branch. So we're going to be using 0.1 version 0.1 . What am I going to use for this thing now? Let me use Street Fighter character. Let me not use guy. Let me use Chun-Li. Is it the spelling? Chun-Li. So Chun-Li is our first character. Okay. Yeah, Chun-Li. Okay, so that's version 0.1. So anything you do, right, you're supposed to, so I want to tell you the process on how we commit and make changes to the system. So I'm on this version now, 0.1, and if I go to my system, I should be able to pull it up. So I want to show you some little changes on the system. When you make changes, how we expect it to go, and updates, how the updates will go. So it's very important to pay attention to this part. Now we have several sections. I mean, we have the back end and the front end. So like I said, we put the whole project in one place, not separated. I think this is not bad. Okay. Let's say I made changes to the back end for some reason. What change can I even apply to this that makes sense now? I'm trying to see a change that I can add to this. So let me add secrets, because I want to put a substantial. I don't just want to write anything. Let me implement the secret part of the code that I was talking to the other time. So that's under the PK configuration. So we did stop at just the database, and like I said, we're going to be having other things. So I want to have the secret part, and the secret is for me to be able to use some certain stuff. So I can come where I have this initialization to do the secret loading. But I want to be doing quite a lot of stuff. So I want to have another function that will say load db. And the idea of the function is that I just want to load this db. The code already works. I don't know what he went to go and copy for me. I'll just put this code here so that I can call this guy here. And this guy stays like this. The other thing I want to also call from here is load environmental variable, which I didn't talk about. So environment variable is, I defined it, what you use in your environment that I don't want to put, or we don't want to put in the code for people to see. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste what I have here to save time, but I'm going to explain it. Don't worry. Okay, so I just did some copying and pasting. Now, the environment variable is a file that will have .env. You have to create a file that's called .env, and it has to be available in your root directory. That's in your backend root directory. So there's this go.env, which is a package that loads that automatically. If you just run this, it will go and look for .env and load it. If there's an error, it's going to come with this, that it can't find it. So let's go ahead and create that file. That file is just going to sit in the root folder. Okay, env, I think we have that already. And that file is pretty straightforward, nothing special. It's just to declare some static stuff. So this is where I add, some some important things. Like, in fact, the database username and password, this is where you should add it actually, not inside your code. You're not supposed to put your password inside here, right? It's supposed to be in your environment variable, and we're going to do that actually. So I can generate key for me, generate string key. Don't write code though. Okay. I thought I told it to generate code for me. env. Okay, better. So env, let's rename that to. Okay, so we have that set, And the next thing I want to do is to define some other thing like db host. And the host I want to use, there's no need for space. I want to use my local system. How was it configured here? Where is it safe? Okay, localhost, port, password, and the DB name, right? So I'm going to stop here. You can specify so many parameter, in your environment variable. The next thing I want to do is to substitute this value from what we have. So that's what I just did right now. There's a function which you are supposed to write, which is get environment variable. And what that does is that it just makes your life easy to be able to get that variable from the backend, or rather from the file. So I'm going to write a new function which is called get environment variable. And what that does is that it looks at the operating system and use this function to get the environment variable. That's the key that you supplied. So if you said you want to get db user, that's what it will supply here, and run this function to go and get the value. If that variable does not exist, it just say that to you that it does not exist. Okay, so which other part is missing? Now this mode here is just to get the mode. Okay, I'm not using mode for now. Let's leave that one. The ports, okay, I'm not getting port for now. Let's leave that one too. So the secret is just to keep it for future use, because like I said, I'll be using this secret in other parts to use to generate some other things in the program. Again, the mode here, I don't need the mode. I'm not using the mode. Okay, the mode was later used here, but let me off the mode. I don't need the mode. So this one is to load the variable into other things that I need, right? So maybe I don't even need this for now, maybe, but I'm just gonna, okay, since it looks as if I don't need it, I'm going to do it like this. And okay, load. Okay, so because if you are loading more than one thing, that's why I say load environment variable. It's only one thing I'm loading. I could just put it here, but let me put it here for future things, because you can load other things into it. This one is more of like initializing the DB. So let me call it initializing database instead of load database. So that's what you are doing. Even though you can call it initializing environment variable, you can also call it like that instead of load. Load sounds very old school. Okay. Now that this part is solved, I hope it's still connecting to database. So let's check if our connection still works. Oh, before we check, I think we've created some certain error. So we need to install this guy. You can see that this guy is not in the system. We need to do cd backend and go get this guy. While it's trying to do that, okay, it has done that already. Let's save. Everything looks good from this point. Let's try to now connect and see if everything is going. So let's do air, and we do our local. Okay, it has generated an error. Hope you guys can see. It says variable db password is not set. So we didn't have environment db password. How do I set an empty value now? So I want to put an empty value. Okay, so let me put empty string now. I hope it will accept that. So let's try that again. Wow, is this where we're going to stop today? So let me check where the error is coming from. Okay, now when you try to get for password, so it's trying to get this password thing here, but it says that it's not set. I think I remember what I did in one of the stuff. I had to force myself to provide a password. or instead of it being fatal, I just return an empty string. Let me check something. Password. Because this fatal means that you can just do a warning and not, raise eyebrow and just move ahead with your life than stopping everybody from working. Okay, so I think I remember what I did. So what I did was to separate the password outside. What that means is that I didn't subject the password to this process, because the password is kind of special. I did subject it to this process because the password on localhost, I don't set it. So why should I subject it to that reality? So what I did is that I have another section for my password here so that I can get it alone. So it's called DB. Now in this case, now that I have it here, I can now check. I remember this part giving me tough time. I remember this part giving me tough time because even with this, I think it's still, did it work? Let me check if it works. So let's go ahead and see version 1 work orders. Okay, we are good, home and dry. That's good, it's working. So the point of me adding this extra bit of code is for me to be able to show you an environment variable and be able to show you how to push. Now let me show you how to push. You have to come to this part, very important. You come to this section and specify the part that you want to commit. It's very important that you commit things that are more like related to themselves, because we're going to be using AI to write our description. I think at this point, do I want to make this part? Okay, I'll just leave this part here because this part are automatically dynamic. I think I should push this one, and this sum should not worry. Let's see how it goes. So at this point, another thing you need to also remember is that this is optional. This is not supposed to go online. Your backend is not supposed to be committed because it's going to contain sensitive information. But because it's the demo version, or rather, because it's the first time, I can push it, I can allow it. So this is where our main code came in. So I'm going to stage it and click on this guy. So this is what I expect you to be using to do your commit. Put all the things you want to do and run your commit. Very easy. Everybody is happy, right? And then you can do it more than once if you believe that what you are doing is not well explicitly expressed. So don't just do it once and just forget about it and go away. You have to actually check what it has said, right? And at 1 or 2 times I've removed some things in what I'm saying, but early development like this, you don't need to worry too much about it, because when you get to the point whereby other people are looking at it, you also need to look at what is generating for you. Another thing I also did was that sometimes I don't want it to say something about this, so I don't put it immediately. Once I'm not done, I will not put it and commit it. But let me see what it will say for everything. So if you don't want it to say something about a particular commit and you intend to push that commit, you can first keep it. When you are done, you now put it. So it says a load environment variable. Okay, so I think it ignored all these other ones, which is fine. So let's commit. Now that I've committed, right, the thing doesn't leave my system. It's still on my system. I then need to push. I will go to this guy and then push my change. And this is what I want you to be doing every time you make an update, and that's how I get to see what is going on. So I just pushed my update. If you are viewing it from your end now, you should also be seeing the same thing. I want this to be happening as often as possible. When there is a code change, code review, don't also be in a hurry too much to just commit or push. You have to make sure that you've hit a sizable, what's the word now? A sizable, it's not breakpoint I want to say, a point here. You hit a point that, okay, it's worth, saving your changes in game. You say checkpoints. Okay, I think that's the word, checkpoints. If you've reached a checkpoint, you can then commit your code and push. Okay, do you have any other questions? I think we've captured quite a lot. Do you have any questions for me before we call it a day? Okay, so I guess that's all for today. I don't know when we'll be doing this again, but I think it should be sometime next week, and by then I'm sure you know my expectation now. Don't focus too much on the structure, focus more on the UI, right? You've shown me something, focus more on the UI. I've created a blanket stuff for you. I've barely touched the front end, right? I've not touched anything on the front end. So the purpose of the backend is just for you to be able to fetch data, and you can see how smooth and easy it is. You have access to the database, get going with the information. You can start worrying about how the data will show, the statistics, the charts, and what have you. Okay, yeah, good night. Okay, TikTok people. Hello. Let's see.